I want to thank you for just staying over. Your story's too long for one program.
Thank you.
And I know you got planes to catch and all, but we'll try to soldier on and finish this. On the last program, we talked about the really amazing story, but I have a feeling that it's the story of a lot of people. Cancer has no respect for any family. Every family, for the most part, is going to be hit by it. But you and your husband journaled all the way through this, so you gave us a real front row seat. You didn't have to try to draw from your memory. And we were talking about how you were with him, and the pain was so great that you were willing to release him. And if you believe your steps are ordered of the Lord, you know, almost every day I try to remember, Lord, order my steps today. That He'll take you to the place and give you the grace to say to this man you absolutely adored that it's okay to go, I'll be all right. That was very, very powerful. You then had to, let me back up a little bit. Before that, was it your husband who came up with an attitude of gratitude where he was keeping track of what you could be thankful for? Was that you?
Both of us together, actually. Somebody
through all this dark.
Yes. We started that, I think, about 3 or 4 months before he passed away. He kept his own gratitude journal and I kept mine. And I had that to reflect on, actually, which was lovely. And I've continued with that.
If everybody would do that, it would be a different world, wouldn't it?
It just changes your thinking. You know, if you wake up one morning and feel a bit grumpy, just find a few things to be grateful for, and it changes your thinking, changes the way you feel.
It comes through your face, lady, let me tell you. Now, he was taken to your home in the casket. He was in the. Is that common in New Zealand?
It's not really, not amongst the European people. Amongst the Maori people, our indigenous people, yes. And deep down I knew to do that. We didn't discuss any funeral arrangements, but I remember Phil saying to me how he thought that was such a wonderful thing to have. And it really was, because, well, selfishly it was actually good for me because I was able to release the physical of Phil over that 3 days. And our home just streamed with people who came to pay their final respects.
There's some kind of nice about it being.
It was lovely.
In the home.
And we've got 3 cats, and you know, each one of those cats went in and paid their respects as well. It was really interesting to watch the animals mourn.
I got to tell you a little animal story. My daddy died of cancer, and little dog Bridget would not leave him. Stayed right on the bed all the time. The day after he passed, my mother wanted to go back out to the cemetery, and she said to the dog, she said, Bridget, let's go see Daddy. Got in the car, drove to the cemetery. This is the absolute truth. That little dog jumped out of that car and went right over to the grave.
Oh, really?
So
they've got to know.
I'm not surprised your 3 cats knew something was going on anyway.
Oh, absolutely. His cat actually stayed by his side for the entire time that Phil's body lay there.
Interesting. Now, you had to pick up your life and go on. There's so many difficulties when you do that. And you speak about feeling guilty if you had a good day, if you had some joy.
Absolutely.
Do you think that's common?
Yes, I believe it is. They call it survivor's guilt. And here I was living the dream that Phil and I wanted to live, was, you know, to be happy together and to find other things to feel joy about. And I was going to do it, and he wasn't.
Was it like a teeter-totter?
Absolutely. Every day it would be different. I'd be up and down like you couldn't believe.
How did you handle it?
Living one day at a time. One day at a time, I just got up and said, Lord, I need your help today. Your will be done. Help me to carry this cross. Because at that time it felt like a cross to carry. And I had this little ritual of prayer. I would actually ask the Lord to help me to accept His will for me and to accept this journey. And then I would pray to Phil, and I would say, just let me feel an ounce of the joy that you're feeling in heaven right now. And you know, I'd have the most amazing days.
That is amazing, because I've lost a couple of relatives in the last couple of years, and it makes you think about heaven.
Oh, yeah.
A whole lot more.
Totally.
And, yeah. Let's see. There was something else he said. He wanted to carry the cross with grace and strength.
Yes.
You know, that comes to me from a very spiritual man, a deeply spiritual man.
There are many things I didn't write in the book that Phil wrote in his journals. And one of them was, I just found it so beautiful. He was talking about what sort of legacy I might leave if I do die from this cancer. But at the very end he said, well, at the end, if I do die, I'm actually going to be like a soldier fighting at God's side and doing his work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, you moved from your home to a new home, which
Yes.
I think probably was a good idea, but you made a bedroom for Phil, or a room for Phil?
It was like a little shrine, actually. It was the smallest room in the home, and I had a lot of his possessions around me, his cream chair that he stayed in for the last 3 weeks of his life. I left his ashes in that room for an entire year. I had a lot of rituals, I think, which enabled me to work through this process of grief.
Was that a good idea?
For me, it was.
Uh-huh.
It was something I needed to do. And some people said to me, you know, you're holding on to his ashes for too long, but I wasn't ready. And I wanted to release them on the anniversary of his death. For me, it was good.
But you eventually dismantled the room.
Oh, absolutely. It's now a bedroom. Actually, no, it's a counselling room now. That's where I see my clients.
Well, what was it that caused you to dismantle it? Because I've said many times that if you have counseling and all, there needs to come a time when you don't need it anymore.
That's what started to happen. At around 6 months, I started to feel this willingness to move on with my life as Tanya, not Tanya and Phil. And I was still hanging on to this physical or something of Phil. And I was ready to move forward. So I actually took some of the things away and left his ashes there only, in my little statue of Jesus next to the ashes. So it was like a little prayer room. But by the time the 1 year had come, I'd taken all of his clothing away, all of the private possessions, and the room then was bare. So
yeah, you know, somehow that seems kind of healthy.
It was the right thing for me to do, because I
maybe not for
processed in my
everybody,
time.
but
yeah, it was about me actually feeling my feelings and not trying to shut them off, and listening. When is it ready for me to truly let go? Because there's a part of you that wants to hang on to the grief because it makes you feel close to them, knowing that you're grieving. And then when I wasn't grieving, I'd be going, oh, I can't forget Phil if I'm not grieving. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's quite a confusing time.
And that's where that guilt
The guilt comes in.
It was a good line, I think. You said that the tsunamis of grief became less and further apart.
They did. I could feel the rumbling beginning of grief, and then I'd just get taken out like a big wave, and then I'd be spinning around in the wave, and then eventually I'd come up and my head would bob above water and I'd start to breathe again, and that was when I had the release.
That is a great illustration, I think.
That's what it felt like.
Now, we've all met people who could not let go of the grief or choose not to. I've often said I had a friend once who had so many complaints that if Jesus had healed her, she would have been disappointed because that was her friend with all her sicknesses. Sure. How do you deal with people who, as a counselor, you know they're hanging on to the grief too long, that there really is a time to move on? Doesn't mean you love the loved one less.
No, not at all. For some reason, people want to hang on to the grief, as did I, because we get something from that. We benefit somehow, and it may just be staying connected to our loved one. I always ask my clients, are you willing to let go of the grief? We need to have that willingness first. Once you're willing, then I believe you can do anything if you pray and ask for guidance as well. But you need to be willing.
Could it be an attention getter?
Possibly. Some people who want to stay the victim in all of this. You know, that was something I didn't want to do. I didn't want to people to look at me like, oh, the poor widow, I didn't want that at all, which is why I didn't want to wear black for a long time. It was, give me the brightest colours I can wear. So
I have a website up for Tanya Unkovich, and she is a author, speaker, counselor, life coach, and an accountant. Do you do any accounting anymore?
I still do, actually, but interestingly, I work at a place where there are a lot of terminally ill people. So that's great. I do the accounting there, and that way I stay connected and being able to help people who are actually in that process.
So the Lord was preparing you?
Totally. I've been on an apprenticeship for many years, I believe, for this.
Okay, what's the difference in counseling and being a life coach?
I believe that a counsellor assists you in working through things from the past, whereas I really like to work with people who want to move forward. And that's what life coaching is more like. It's goal setting, looking forward, building your hopes and dreams and working towards them. Some people don't know what their hopes and dreams are. Mm-hmm. So it's about helping them find out, well, what are your hopes and dreams? Mm-hmm. What do you want in this life?
Mm-hmm. There was a point when you said, quoting you, Lord, it's time for me to live. Mm-hmm. What would lead up to making that kind of a declaration? I think it's a little brave, because sometimes we like to hang on to the past, no matter how miserable it was at least something we knew. Mm-hmm.
I really did want to move forward, because I knew that Philip would just be so upset with me if he knew I was hanging on and hanging on. However, when I was willing to live, that was when the Lord put many more lessons in my path for the few years after that. And I've had to learn how to find Tanya and to discover who I am in the world now, because I was no longer a married woman. Mm-hmm. I had to re-identify who I was. And my growth since then has been extraordinary, because I've had to stand up in the world on my own and, hang on to God's hand, admittedly, but that's been a huge journey for me.
I know that by experience, and you put it so eloquently, and a lot of women need to learn that, because sadly, men pass away before women.
Absolutely.
And when my husband died, I went to open a checking account, and I sat there and cried. I thought, what name do I put on this thing?
Oh, that's right.
Because my checking account always said Mrs. Don Rippey. And so I kind of understand those, and they're not just huge, but they're little identity crises that you have to work through.
Little things like shopping for yourself in the grocery store.
Yeah.
That was really difficult for me, and it took me about 6 months to stop shopping for Phil. I'd buy all this food, and then I'd be juicing all the vegetables because I had so much food in the house.
Yeah, one quick one, that during the really rough times, you turned to food for comfort. And I don't remember you stating it, but did you put on a bunch of weight or something that you...
Not really. I became very thin when Phil was unwell. Mm-hmm. And so really I just gained the weight that I needed to. Mm-hmm. But because the food was my comfort and I was wanting to not feel the pain, what I would focus on would be my body size. And so, of course, I was seeing a body that was much bigger than it was. I was probably this size then, maybe a few pounds more. But my head was playing games with me, because it was easier to go to that rather than focus on the loneliness.
Mm-hmm. Yes, all food is...
A great friend.
Food is just wonderful. Well, it's possible we're talking to a lot of people who needed to hear your story, and thank God you were directed to write it down, as well as your husband, because in a day of long, long diseases, some of them terminal illnesses can take a huge, huge portion of your life, and what it does to you when you go through it. And you've done a good job in, I think, helping a lot of our viewers.
I do hope so.
And maybe giving them a little shortcut. So again, the book is Unplanned Journey, and you can go to her website. They can get it through the website, right?
It's best to actually go through the .com sites like Christian Bookstore or Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
ChristianBooks.com, yes. Amazon.com.
Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
And it's called Unplanned Journey, and it has a companion journal. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
If you come back and visit the United States again, let me know.
Oh, I will do that. Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.